Hello, I'm Mark Skevich, and welcome to a very special edition of Not Politics as Usual. I'm joined alongside Congressman Michael Grimm of the 11th Congressional District of New York, which is Staten Island and the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn. Thank you for coming on the program, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
And you're actually the only Republican representative in the New York City area. And how does it feel being the representative for Republicans in New York?
Well, it's a mixed bag in the sense that, it's the only federally elected Republican, that includes the House and the Senate, for 8.5 million people. It's a profound sense of responsibility. Even though you may not live in my district, you could be in Manhattan, you may be in the Bronx, as the only, especially House Republican, and since we're in the majority, many different constituencies, even though they don't actually live in the district, come to me and expect me to be able to get things done for them. So that's one aspect where it is a tremendous responsibility, and I take that very seriously. The other thing is I'm the only voice in New York to be really a counterbalance. This government, our wonderful government, was set up to have checks and balances, but often here in New York City, we don't get those checks and balances because they're all Democrats, and there's no voice of opposition. So it's incumbent upon me to push back, whether it's the Obama administration or even the new de Blasio mayoral administration, for me to at least be a counterpoint, to be a voice of opposition when it's appropriate. And don't get me wrong, if I agree, I'll agree. I don't oppose just for the sake of opposing, but often I find myself in a position to have to bring to light certain facts that the other side won't bring to light. So I think that's extremely important. And lastly, it's a little difficult to have a target on your back. As the only Republican, I'm the guy they always take shots at. But, I knew that when I was going in. I have broad shoulders, and I guess God never gives you more than you can handle.
There's a lot of misconceptions with Republicans out there, and it's like you said, since you're the only Republican, you do have a target in New York where it's mainly Democratic views, and the media tends to be a little biased towards Democrats.
Well, that's an understatement.
A little bit of an understatement. One of the misconceptions is Obamacare, and I heard on a morning show on 105.1 during the government shutdown where she said, well, Democrats feel that everyone should have health insurance and Republicans feel that it's not fair. And that made absolutely no sense. It's nothing further from the truth. Can you elaborate on how it's nothing like universal health care, and people have a misconception that it's universal health care? And to call it an Affordable Care Act, the word affordable is,
Well, there's the irony of it. Listen, I understand the premise, but the intention of the law was to include more people so that more people would have access to quality health care. And those intentions, I can't argue with. Those are good intentions, but it's often said the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, this bill is anything but the good things that it was intended to be. Unfortunately, what it does is it degrades the quality of care for everyone. All the people that had quality health care before are no longer going to have quality health care. So, the president's health care plan unfortunately degrades the quality of care for everyone. So all of those that had good health insurance and were happy with what they had, unfortunately, they're going to have a decreased level of care, and it's going to cost more. And the very people that we were expecting to help, right, that the Democrats said we were going to help, are actually not getting help, because when they find out that their co-payments are much, much higher than they can ever afford, then they're unfortunately still going to the emergency room. So this bill hasn't done what it said it was going to do, but it has degraded health care for everyone. Everyone that I know of has a higher premium, a higher co-payment, and a higher deductible. Many seniors no longer have the doctors that they once had because the doctors and the insurance companies have dropped that type of care. The other thing that you're seeing is all of the major companies, the vast majority of them, have already reduced the amount of coverage they're providing. Like UPS has told their employees their spouses are no longer covered. And many others are considering dropping the coverage they have and putting everyone into the exchanges. So unfortunately for the United States, we are on our way to a single-payer system if we don't stop this train wreck. And it really does mean much less care at a much higher cost. And very few people are going to be happy about this. And what I think is actually going to happen is it's going to collapse under its own weight. As more Americans see the disaster and train wreck that this legislation is, the public outcry will be overwhelming. And at that point, then we may be able to change it, defund it, or repeal it completely.
And on a local level, we talked about the target on your back, and media tends to blow the negatives way out of proportion and forget about the positives. And you've done a lot for the community on a local level, not just Staten Island with Hurricane Sandy, which we're going to get into in a second, but Brooklyn also. This is, I'm a Brooklyn native, as is are yourself, and you recently had a pipeline approved for natural gas. Can you tell us about that?
You know, that's one of the things I'm very, very proud of, because when I recently met with National Grid, and I didn't realize they were going to be speaking about me, but I wanted to meet some of the people that work there that live in Brooklyn and in Staten Island. And when I met with them, their top executive told the crowd, and these are all their employees, that they had over a dozen pipeline bills in the Congress in different areas across the country. And out of all of those bills for extensions of pipeline to bring in more natural gas, which will lower the cost of energy for those local residents and create jobs and bring in tax revenue for the city where they were, only one was approved, and that was mine. That was signed into law. And that's because I pushed relentlessly. And I think that's part of why the Democrats attack me so much. It's one reason. I'm effective. I get things done that other members of Congress don't, and I do it every single day. The pipeline was one, and I take a lot of pride and a lot of time in some of the small things. I mean, we had complaints that the Parks Department were bringing in trucks all hours of the night and backing them up, and you know they have those sirens that go off when a truck is backing up, that it beeps and it makes a lot of noise because it's supposed to be a safety device, but it was waking residents. Even that we were able to get done. So we get involved in a lot of things for the quality of life of the neighborhoods, and most recently we're working on flood insurance. Now this is a huge, a tremendous issue across the country. 27 states have issues with floods. 2 different governors recently were calling on the president to do something about the rapid rise and the astronomical rise in flood insurance premiums that are going to put people out of their homes. National home builders, national realtors are saying this is going to stop the housing market from recovering, and we have to do something.
That's where the flood insurance reform bill
That's the
comes
flood
in?
insurance reform bill, and I've worked, even during the shutdown, I was able to work across the aisle with the Senate and get a bill quickly onto drop it on the House, and now work across the aisle to finalize that bill, and next week we'll go to a vote, and I know we'll have an overwhelming vote in support of this bill. But that's leadership, and when Democrats see that I'm working across the aisle and that I'm getting things done, they don't know what to do. You know, they panic, and that's why they hit me as hard as they do.
And another thing you were able to do during the chaos with Hurricane Sandy is you were able to get a lot of funding, billions of dollars, which was very impressive. Could you tell us about not only that, but Hurricane Sandy from start and where we are now in the recovery stage with Hurricane
Sure.
Sandy?
You know, Sandy is still near and dear to my heart because there's so many people that were crushed. I mean, literally lost everything, their homes, their families. They'll never be the same. And my heart goes out to these people that are still struggling to this day. And I remember being in a room with just 5 members of Congress, 2 members from New Jersey, Peter King from Long Island, and me representing all of New York City. And the 5th member was Eric Cantor, the majority leader. And it looked like the far, far right was going to strip out $16 billion or $17 billion worth of CDBG money, that's the Community Development Block Grants, that was going to New York City. And the 3 other members looked at me and said, hey, Grimm, that's New York City's money, you better fix it. Here I am, a freshman, never had any experience in politics. And one of the guys in the room has been in 18 years at that point. Others, 15 years. They had a lot of tenure. And they looked to me to carry the ball on that. And somehow, some way, with the grace of God, I was successful and able to keep that money in the budget. So I think about that, and I look now to where we are 16 months later. And the city of New York, and it is an absolute disgrace, has dropped the ball. That money has not been given to the homeowners that desperately need it to rebuild, for those whose houses can't be rebuilt, for them to be bought out, for just people to get on with their lives, for small businesses that are now gone under. It's too late for them, and they should have been saved because that money has been available. The Bloomberg administration did not allocate the funding to housing the way they should. They dropped the ball, and now the de Blasio administration is following suit and, in my opinion, making things worse. Governor Cuomo, to his credit, has had some pretty good programs and has helped Staten Island in particular with some buyouts. But I'm hoping that the governor comes in and does more because the city of New York has made a disaster of the disaster, and I feel that these victims are being re-victimized.
You're having some trouble meeting with de Blasio's people about the Hurricane Sandy. Do you think that you'll reach any progress with them in the near future?
Look, I've made the request. All I can do is request to meet with them. The truth is, the mayor doesn't want, and his team don't want to meet with me because they're not prepared. They don't know what they're going to do with the Build It Back program. They don't know whether they're going to reallocate funding, and they don't want to sit in the room with the one guy that knows most of the facts. They can't fool me. I know the numbers inside and out. I wrote the bill. I know what they can do and what they can't do, and what they're telling the press simply isn't true. They're trying to say that federal funds, it's so encumbered, you have to jump through so many hoops. That is a truth, but both New Jersey and the state of New York have already jumped through those hoops, and they've allocated the money. New York State, their New York Rising has already allocated $260 million to homeowners. So what is New York City's problem? Obviously, it's the same hoops. So I don't know when they'll meet with me. I'm going to keep trying. But in the meantime, I'm going to go to HUD. I'm going to continue to work with the secretary. And I may even decide to call in the HUD IG to really come in and see what is going on with this money and take over. And like I said, I'm going to probably just implore the governor to take over all these programs and bypass the city completely.
It seems like you're having some difficulty with working together with other parts of the government, and the Pulaski Skyway in Jersey is another recent issue where Staten Island wasn't even informed that there was going to be construction which is going to divert traffic into Staten Island. And Staten Island already has their own construction. They have a bunch of potholes because of the weather. What is going to be done about that?
Well, we just agreed. I spoke with the commissioner of New Jersey DOT, and Mr. Simpson, Commissioner Simpson, is a good man, and he lived in Staten Island, so he understands, and I believe he is going to work with us. You know, my initial concerns is, number one, how much traffic is going to be rerouted, because the most recent national study shows that Staten Island has the longest commute in the country. When you look at the actual distance divided by the amount of time that it takes, we have the longest commute in the country. So the idea that we're going to have more traffic is just untenable for us. The other thing is, as you just mentioned, the Staten Island Expressway is under construction. Did they coordinate with those construction crews? Now the other thing is, they go over the Verrazano Bridge. Now they're where we are right now in Brooklyn, and the BQE is under construction. Did we coordinate with those? So those are the questions that I have. Did we do any traffic studies? Did we do any environmental studies? Did we coordinate with traffic construction crews in Staten Island and in Brooklyn? These are the things we need to know. Fortunately, though, I do have confidence in Commissioner Simpson. I do believe they will work with us, and I think we can come up with a resolution. We're going to have an official meeting, probably hosted by the Chamber of Commerce in Staten Island and myself, my office, in conjunction with the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce, and have all of the elected officials that would like to participate and get some of the answers to these questions, so that it's not behind the scenes, but it's open, and we can inform our constituents of what they can expect.
Well, one thing I like about you is you're not a career politician. You actually had a military man who was served in the Gulf War, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
A lawyer, investment banker, and also a business owner, Healthalicious. So my next question is about the paid sick leave. As a previous business owner, and especially in the restaurant field, because that's where people are having somewhat of a concern with sick days and, you know, people handling food coming into work sick. What is your thoughts on the paid sick leave?
It's a great question. You know, I think the perfect storm is coming for business owners. Listen, small business owners are struggling. Since 2008, when the economy really took a turn, small businesses have been closing. They have been laying off people. They have been firing staff that they normally would never let go. And what we're seeing is only the very large corporations, the big box stores, be able to survive. I think when you add the fact here in New York City that minimum wage is going to go up, paid sick days, it's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for many small businesses. And ultimately what that means is that the business goes under and all of those employees lose their job. So instead of helping the employees, it's going to end up hurting the very people we're trying to help. So we have to take a much broader perspective of this and grow the economy. If we can grow the economy and get these businesses doing more business, they'll be able to give more hours, they'll be able to give more wages. That's the answer here. It's not to, literally beat these small business owners into submission, because they will go under, and then we will lose those jobs. And if you look at the jobs created, most of the jobs created across the nation have been part-time jobs. And that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot of cutbacks, less people in the workforce, and a lot more part-time work rather than the full-time jobs that we would normally see.
I would figure if you have 5 workers, you're going to cut it down to 4 to save that.
That's very possible.
So it's going to cost jobs. So
Exactly.
But any message? This is an election year. Any message that you have to the voters out there
Well,
in the democratically biased city that we live in?
Listen, I'm not very political. This is my first endeavor in the political arena as a congressman. I wasn't in city government or state government, but I'm a regular human being that was fed up with the way this country was going, and I decided to do something about it. And I take that to work with me every day. So what I can guarantee you is that my heart is in the right place. I'm going to give you 110% every single day, and I am going to get the job done one way or the other. And the Democrats are going to attack me for it. Let them attack me all they want. Judge me on my record, because you'll notice in all the attacks, they're always personal, they're always assassinating my character, but they won't talk about my record, because my record stands by itself. And you can take all the Democrats in New York City combined, and they don't want to compare their record combined against mine in 3 short years. I get the job done, I work for my constituents, and I only answer to the people. I don't care about parties, I don't care about politics, I care about the people that are working hard every day, paying their taxes, trying to keep their head above water. That's who I answer to. And as long as I answer to them, the papers can write whatever they want.
All right, sounds good. And on that note, thank you for joining us on Not Politics as Usual. Alongside Michael Grimm, I'm Mark Skevich, and we'll see you next time.